Yeah, so I will be talking about Web Components one-on-one, like the introductory class. My name is Filip Voska. I'm from Infinum, not from Skopje, but from Zagreb office, and this is the first time we have JavaScript talks here in Skopje, so it's really nice to see so many people attend here. So it looks like a really dense content for my presentation, but really it will be quite light, I would say. So first, I would just like to show you that you've actually seen web components before. Maybe you're not even, you were maybe not even aware there were web components. I'll briefly go over the specification of the web component standard. We won't deep dive, I'll just point you in the direction where you can go to see it. And really to understand them, I will go through an example creating a web component from scratch. In the end, we'll see, okay, is anyone actually using this? Because it's not that new technology, but it still doesn't have that great of an adoption. So we'll see, okay, is it used somewhere? And in the end, you can answer some questions. Please be gentle. The audience in Podgorica was gentle, so I hope you will be as well. Okay, so you've seen web components before. I trust many of you are developers, and you've probably used something like a video element, some input type number, input type date, etc. And like using those components is like really straightforward. You just use the video tag name, and you give it some sources for the video, and that's basically it. It's some cover image maybe, and it's done. But you know, the video element has like play, pause button, volume control, scroll bar for seeking, etc. But if you're looking at the DevTools here, you don't really see any of that. You can't inspect that. Well, there is well, DevTools have a bunch of options, and there is one option which is of interest to us, which is called Show User Agent Shadow DOM. So user agent is like your browser, and now once you enable this, you can see that the video element, okay, it has something called a shadow root, and here we can see there's some div element and a bunch of other child elements. And once you start inspecting those, you will see that you can actually inspect the play pause button and all the other buttons. Now, this might look different in different browsers, but this is an example of how it looks in Chrome, for example. Yeah, and even the input element is also made of something a bit more complex. So this is kind of the native implementation of native elements as web components. And there is a specification for the web components, or sometimes they're also called custom elements. And I really think that for most things, JavaScript and HTML, MDN is probably the best source for it. And they have really kind of a couple of nice articles about web components, and they cover a couple of different APIs that are in this set of APIs for custom elements. So I won't like go through the slides. I'll just go into a demo to show you. We'll create a simple web component. There is a repository which you can inspect. The repository has a bit more complex example than what I will be creating, but it's basically the same thing. I have also printed a cheat sheet for myself, like Elon told me, and I can continue with the demo. We will be doing something that you haven't done in a while, and that is writing everything in a single HTML file. Let me arrange all the windows that I want. Okay, great. So this is our simple HTML document, and when we're talking about custom elements and the native elements, all elements extend the base HTML element. And we will start like that as well. So I'll add a script tag, and by the way, I'm using GitHub Copilot in hopes that it will save me some time during this presentation, but we'll see how well it goes. So we'll do a class. We will create a simple counter component which has plus minus buttons and the count. Okay, this is doing too much. It's looking at my code. Okay, my counter extends HTML element. And there is a lot of different HTML elements. You could also extend a paragraph element if you want, but we'll just do the very basic one, the HTML element. Okay, so now we have a very basic class, it doesn't do anything yet. But how will we be using that? Well, we would like to use it like we've seen video element, other elements. So we'll do something like my counter, okay? But how does the browser know that if when it sees my counter tag name, that it should be an instance of this class, of this custom element? Well, here is where the first set of first API comes into play. Nice, thanks. It's the custom elements API, where you can, it's a registry of all the custom elements, and you can define your own elements here. So we will define an element under the tag name myCounter, and we'll simply tell it, okay, it's use this class for this element. If I save this, nothing really interesting happens. I mean, I can inspect that the element is here, it's empty. Of course, we haven't done anything so far. If you're used to React, Angular, or some other frameworks, those frameworks, when you're creating components, they usually have some lifecycle hooks. So in React, it's maybe components did mount. Well, not in the hooks-based React, but you probably remember the old React. In Angular, there's also some lifecycle hooks, and web components are kind of also similar in that respect. So the first lifecycle hook that we are interested in is called connected callback. And this is the method that is called when the component is added to the web page, when it's added to the DOM. And we'll do something quite simple. We will set inner HTML of our element to be a button that has ID decrease. It has some span, which will show the count, the button which is ID increase and plus icon. We will set, I'll just delete this so we don't get too much ahead of ourselves. And if I save it now, okay, we see something, but obviously there's no interaction yet. So we'll start doing something now. So I'll get the increase element, which is increase. I'll get the decrease element. Okay, and I will add some event listeners to them, right? So I want, when I click on it, I wanted the count to increase, or when I click on the other one, I wanted the count to decrease. But okay, I can do that, but nothing yet happens. Yeah, of course. Now this is the step where we have to update the DOM to show the new value, and this is usually what you would call rendering in UI frameworks. So we'll do like, you know, your React class components had a render function, so we'll also do a render function, just to have an analogy of it. So we'll try to find the count element. Okay, if we don't find it, we'll just return briefly just to be safe. And once we do find it, we will set the inner text of the element to the value of a variable that will be our state, so to say. I'll just briefly add this count variable to our class as well. It will start with 0. This hash sign, that is just a bit newer feature of JavaScript, where this is a private variable. It doesn't have protected, it just has private and public. Okay, so we will immediately use that here. Okay, this .count, and when we click the plus and minus button, we have to render. Okay, now something should happen when we click the buttons. Okay, it's not happening. Maybe I messed something up. Ah, yes, thank you. This was an intentional mistake. Okay, we are changing stuff. We won't worry with it going into minus. Okay, nice. It's starting to be something nice, and we can have multiple of them on the web page, and they're all independent. They all have their own state and behavior, and we would also like to make them look a bit nicer, right? So I'll like, how do you do this? we won't do anything. Well, I guess you could call this CSS in JS, right? Because we are writing inline style tag using JavaScript, and we'll just say that the button element. I don't know why the button element doesn't have the cursor pointer by default. So I'll do that, and I'll do border none, and I'll do background none. Okay. So it's looking a bit nicer, let's say. However, we've introduced an issue right now. The style tag which we've added, it will be applied to the whole web page. So if we had also a button element outside of our outside of our web component, it will also get the styles, which is probably not what you want, right? You want, and it would work both ways. Even if you had global styles in your main application, those would also link to the web component. Now, this is another nice API that the web components have. You remember when we looked at that video element, it had shadow root. And we so far do not have anything like that. So we just have everything directly here in the DOM. So shadow root is something that allows us, to completely separate the styles of our element and some other stuff from the rest of the application. So I'll just do, when the component mounts, I'll do this shadow root equals this attach shadow. It has a couple of different modes, open and closed. I won't go into details about those. You can check it out in the documentation. For our example, it doesn't matter which mode it is. Okay, things got broken, right? We no longer see anything being rendered, and that is because now that we have attached a shadow root, we also want to do all the DOM and the interaction that we're doing is inside of that shadow root. So instead of setting inner HTML directly, we will set it on the shadow root. Okay, that's the first one. We also have to update our query selectors. I think I have 3 of them. They also have to go through the shadow root. And I'll also add in a render if there is no shadow. If there is no shadow root, I'll return just to be sure. Okay, and I'll again mess something up. Okay, when did it start working? That shadow root. Okay. Okay, I'll debug this. Return. Okay, I messed up some. This is. Oh, okay. Return. What did it do? Okay, I was at it. I'll undo it. Okay, this shadow root, that query selector, right? Well, I messed it up. I was doing multiple cursor thing. So if not this shadow root, return, and this is fine. Yeah. Okay. So now let's try clicking on it. It's fine, and the styles are not clicking. Okay, great. And this is like for some use cases, this might already be enough, depending on what you're doing. But we also want to add some interaction to it, right? So there is no communication between the host application and our custom element. Maybe the first thing which would come to mind is to maybe just add a value to it. So I can say, okay, let it start with value 10, not 0, the default one. And now we come to some other lifecycle hook methods. So in this, so we have actually 2 lifecycle methods to work with here. First, we have to tell the browser which attributes are we interested in keeping track of. And for that, we will use, we have to define a static property, observed attributes. and we want to observe the value. So this is kind of an optimization. You don't want to be observing on everything. And it's important to optimize this because whenever the value changes, there is another function that will be called. It's called attribute changed callback. Okay, please complete. Nice. So this callback receives the name of the attribute. In our case, we will just have the value attribute because that's the only one which we are observing, but you can get any other one which you are observing. The old value, the new value, you can do something smart with that if you want. And what we will do, we will parse the integer of the new value. See, I'm smarter than Copilot. I know I have to add 10 here. And we will just parse it because you will always get the attributes as strings. And once we do that, we will just render. So if I save now, we can see that the counter starts with 10. And I can have, again, multiple of them if I want. The other one which starts with 1, etc. That's one way of communication, where you pass the data down to the web component, but we also want to kind of pass the data up to for example, when we click plus or minus button, maybe we want to tell the parent application what's the current value, like so it can listen to changes. We already have our click handlers, right? And we'll just do some new methods called, let's say, emit. And what it will do, it will dispatch the event. Okay, this dispatch. Okay, we'll dispatch a custom event. We will give it the name of the event, and we can pass some data to the event. And we can also say something like bubbles true. So this is just regular custom events. This is not anything specific to web components. Okay, so we have created, so we have to call the emit method, right? So here, this emit, maybe after the render, I guess. It's you can think about it, what way it should be. And now we'll just add a simple script tag, which will attach the event listener. So this is just very basic JavaScript about handling events, nothing web component specific. But it's interesting to see that you can query your element by the tag name, my counter. Here we will get just the first one. We have 2 of them. Actually, I'll delete one. And we just have to make sure that the name of the event matches. And now we will just console log the event detail. And in the event detail, we have passed what is the value. Once I start clicking now, okay, I can see I'm getting the events in the parent application. And I mean, this is already kind of powerful. We've created something very simple, and we had to kind of mess around with manual rendering, and this whole part is ugly, right? But we can do that nicer. We will see that with React and Angular. That's what those frameworks do well. And we'll see how we can also marry those UI frameworks with web components. Because the nice thing about this, something that's, I guess obvious, but not maybe immediately, is that this is completely framework agnostic, right? You can use this anywhere. You can use this in React applications, in Angular applications, in WordPress applications, or just simple vanilla applications. So it would be nice if the world gathered, so we all create nice components, everyone can use them anywhere they want. Okay, so that's it for the demo. You can look at the repository. It has a bit more complex example with some styling as well. This is how it looks. You will see my colleagues later, they will create this kind of looking component. The support is good. Internet Explorer, I think we're past it. We don't have to worry about it no longer. Safari has some quirks, but it's really good enough for 99% of cases. You don't have to worry about, there's some edge case that it doesn't cover. So you've probably heard about material design. It's by Google. They use it in Android, but they also have like Angular material for Angular. But they also now, with new version of material, version 3, they have started creating framework agnostic web components for material design, and they doing them as web components. And you can, it's still very experimental, work in progress kind of thing. but they already have some components and you can take a look at them. So this is some kind of chips component which has a bunch of different ways of interacting with it. And if you go inspecting it, you will see that it has those shadow roots, it's made up of some other elements, it's nested multiple levels, so there's a lot of stuff happening here, but if you're just using it, you can use it anywhere. It doesn't matter which framework you're using. So that's kind of one option if you just want to use a ready-made UI toolkit. But maybe you're also, if you're working for some client, maybe you also want to create something custom for them. Maybe they have a whole brand design language, and you're not using material. You will create something from scratch. Well, for that, I would say that Stencil is maybe a good option if you want to build web components. So it's kind of a weird marriage between React and Angular, where you have a class for your custom element, and you have the component decorator, which is almost exactly the same as in Angular, but you also have the render function and the JSX, you write HTML sort of thing using JSX. And this is like making the whole rendering part much nicer than what we have been doing. Support, of course, is good because it's framework agnostic. You can use this basically anywhere. And here is just a bit larger example of a component that has a bit more interaction to it. It has some click handlers, it emits some events, etc. So yeah, that is pretty much it for what I wanted to show about the very basics of web components. Thank you. So if you have some questions, fire away. Okay. Any questions, maybe? Yes?
I was late, so maybe you mentioned this, but what's the advantage of using web components instead of React functional components?
Okay, so good question. That's, I would say, one of the maybe main reasons why web components are powerful is because you can use them anywhere. If you're building a React functional component, you can use it only in other React applications, not in, let's say, an Angular application or any other application that is not React, unless you do something special that our colleague will show you. So you could build a React component and make it a web component. So that will be the topic of the next talk. But you could also do them from scratch using something like Stencil and, again, use them anywhere. Okay. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. It was very nice. I wanted to ask you about in your demo when you called the my value element with the event, you didn't use shadow root over there. So
when I emitted the event.
You didn't need to access it via shadow root. Why is that? I didn't
Here.
Understand that.
I don't understand it either.
When you've tried to access all of the elements above, you've used this dot hashtag shadow root
Okay.
for accessing them.
Yes.
And below in the HTML in the body, can you go
here
at my counter? You used only document query selector. It can find the element without using the shadow root now.
Yes. So if you inspect what we have here, okay. So this is a different. I'll open the old example. Okay.
Sorry, maybe I just got confused.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So you see the counter is here, okay, and shadow root is deeper down, okay. So it's let's say a child of your element, and everything is inside of it. So if you tried selecting something that is deeper, so if you tried selecting this element, you couldn't do it because it's buried deeper down. Yeah. But you can select the root element using its tag name, just like you would do with any other element.
Okay, now I see they're on the same level. Thank you.
Yeah. This script tag is a sibling. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
I want to ask: are web components like a predecessor to React, Angular, and Vue, or are they somewhat?
Well, I think it's not that new of a thing. I think that there were two versions of the specification. There was like version 0 and version 1. I think it kind of started popping up around 2014, so all like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It's like quite old at this point, and it arrived. So as you've seen, it has like lifecycle hooks and stuff like that. So it's obviously coming from the same kind of period as early React and early Angular, with that sort of methodology. So I would say they were kind of created at the same time, roughly. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Yes?
In React, we are used to like passing bigger arrays with objects. Is it possible here because we're like standard?
Okay. I forgot to repeat previous questions, but I have the microphone. I'll repeat this one. So yeah, the question was, in our example, we were passing down a very simple value. We were just doing parse int. Yes, you would have to do like parse JSON or something like that if you want to pass down something a bit richer. This interaction part is a bit uglier, I would say, because it's always strings that you're passing around here. Yeah, this is text. This is not a number. This is a string. Yeah, you could write anything here, right? So I mean, I could write this. I mean, do you write it like this? It's parsing as integer, so that this is okay. Maybe like this. Okay, so wait. Okay. I don't know. Okay, this is math. Okay, okay, this will be fine. Okay. So you can say you have to parse whatever you pass down. Okay, thank you.
What if we have multiple props? Do we have to specify all of them?
So yeah, so you can add, let's say, a minimum value for the counter. Now you have to go back, you have to observe it because of the optimizations, and now you will have, come on Copilot. Okay, I'll just okay, I won't go implementing the minimum, but yeah, you would do something when the minimum changes, right? And you would return here. Yeah, you have to kind of, yes, you see also this is kind of a bit manual work that you have to do for everything. That is what Stencil makes nicer. It has some decorators for all of that. Angular also does it a bit nicer. We will see how there's a translation layer between React or Angular components and web components. Okay.
That was my second question. Can we reuse all of this? The reusability of components. We can use the component in everywhere, right?
Yeah, you can use this component wherever you want. So we will see some real-world examples later as well of some components that we have created for our clients and why we created them as web components.
Can you call them on npm like something to install them, or how do you access them?
Like there is a build process that the web component goes through. You basically get one JavaScript file from it, maybe some assets as well in different ways. Okay, I will leave them answer the building. Okay, they will demonstrate that. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let's save some questions for them. Don't roast me. Okay. You can ask them before they present. Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you. We have to do a quick shuffle to change.